It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the 5 films of Easter weekend, April 14th, 2006. We got 5 films to look at today, and we have the 4th installment of the Scary Movie franchise, Disney's clone to Madagascar. We also have a couple of indie movies, Gretchen Mol starring as Betty Page, Kinky Boots, a movie that eventually became a Broadway musical, and the movie that launched Ellen Page into the stratosphere, along with Patrick Wilson, but we'll get to those movies later on. But let's start with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is the David Zucker-directed 4th installment of the Scary Movie franchise, Scary Movie 4.
Believed in the early years of the 21st century that our world was being watched by intelligences greater than our own. This spring, when the worlds are at war,
A girl had a pet duck.
Mr. President, the planet is under attack by aliens.
Well, I'll handle that in a minute. Right now, I want to see what happens with the duck.
More people will die.
You mean right now all of these children's parents could be dead? Remind me to sign that abortion bill.
No grudge is strong enough.
There's something going on in this house. I can't shake this feeling of evil.
No village is safe enough.
There's someone here that has the answers. Shall we have a foot race?
No saw is sharp enough. I did it! We're saved! Oh my God! What's wrong? Wrong foot. Mother. Scary Movie 4.
Ready for the Tom Ryan Express?
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I've taken bullets to the face before.
Based on true events.
He is in the building. The man who saved the world, Tom Ryan!
I'm in love.
I love Cindy Campbell! The boy has lost him. I love this boy! I love this woman!
Yeah, that trailer kind of gives you an indication of where the spoof movie genre was pretty much going, because keep in mind, Date Movie came out a couple months before this, and essentially the spoof movie eventually evolved into, let's not just cover the specific genre of a movie we're targeting with our title here. Let's just parody everything that's coming out at the time. You see Tom Cruise there at the end with Oprah Winfrey, kind of like what happened in real life when Tom Cruise was married to Katie Holmes. That was a remarkable time if you grew up around that time period. But in this film, Anna Faris once again is back as Cindy Campbell, who's hired to work as at a cursed house as caretaker of an old lady and meets the ghost of a boy, The Grudge. Meanwhile, the teenage son Robbie and the young daughter Rochelle of his next-door neighbor and crane operator Tom Ryan are spending the weekend with their loser father. Cindy and Tom meet and fall in love with each other, but when giant tripods invade Earth, the War of the Worlds, Tom escapes with Robbie and Rachel. Cindy travels to the village, trying to find the answer to a riddle to save the world, and the President of the United States, played once again by Leslie Nielsen, organizes the defense of the planet in the United Nations under his intelligence and leadership. I've gone on record saying that I prefer these scary movies over the Wayans Brothers scary movie films. I just like these ones better. I'm a Zucker lover. I mean, I love anything that David Zucker is involved in, even if it's a bad movie. And this one is kind of getting into that bad area, but then again, like I said, it's kind of in that little bit of a middle ground here for what the spoof movie is supposed to be, like tackling a specific genre of movies, but we're also kind of delving into the Freeburg-Seltzer level here with Date Movie, and then coming out after this one, Epic Movie, and like, just, this is kind of that little bit of a little bit of a middle ground right now for what the spoof movie was essentially turning into. And yeah, you could definitely see the old spoof movie mixing in with the new spoof movie, but unlike the spoof movies of Freeburg and Seltzer, this movie still is very, very funny, and it works because they have such a really good cast to make this material work. I mean, Anna Faris and Regina Hall will usually be the bright spots of these movies in general. You got Craig Bierko playing a pretty good Tom Cruise impersonator in this. Bill Pullman, Anthony Anderson, Carmen Electra, Kevin Hart, of course Leslie Nielsen. You have Cloris Leachman, Michael Madsen, Dr. Phil, Shaquille O'Neal, Molly Shannon, Chris Elliott. Just a star-studded cast all around in this movie, and they're making the material work very well here. And yeah, there's a lot here to still like about the movie, even though there are a lot of jokes more in this film that do definitely falter under what we would expect to see from a movie like this. There are a lot of jokes that aren't really all that funny, not really all that clever overall. Like, there's just parodies for the sake of parodies. Like, there's a Brokeback Mountain parody in this because Brokeback Mountain had just come out a couple months prior. As I mentioned before, there's an Oprah Winfrey parody where the Tom Cruise character has to jump around and act like Tom Cruise did when he progressed his love for Katie Holmes. I mean, there's a lot of elements in here that are just there to be like, hey, remember when this moment happened? Remember when this moment happened? Yeah, but like I said before, there's still that middle ground. There's that kind of spoof movie, and then there's the older spoof movie where they are parodying the newer the spoof movies that have come out since the last Scary Movie film, like the aforementioned War of the Worlds, Saw, The Village. I'm thinking of another one I'm missing out on here, but then again, you have those parodies of like $1 Million Baby also thrown in there. There's another Michael Jackson joke in there. The poster for this actually has King Kong on the front of it, even though he's nowhere in the movie, which I guess was a segment that they had to pull out of the film. But the film overall is still a fun film. It's still a movie that I've got a ton of laughs out of, but then again, that's just because I like the David Zucker movies. I like any movie done by the Zucker brothers in general here. I still think they had their heart and soul put into this, even though there's clearly signs of the new era of spoof movies to come, as a lot of the jokes in here don't really have that same spark that they did in the last movie in general, but this movie is still very entertaining. It certainly kicks the crap out of what they did with Scary Movie 5, which just completely ruined that series altogether. But hoping that the next film, this new reboot that they're doing, hopefully they change that around. But Scary Movie 4 was a pretty good film. I'm not as good as Scary Movie 3, but it's the Zucker brothers. I like the Zucker brothers movies in general, so I like it because of that. So I give it a pass on that level alone. But yeah, like I said, it's definitely a movie it's definitely not a movie without its flaws. It does have a lot of flaws to it, but I still really enjoyed it overall. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, and it's literally Disney's knockoff of Madagascar. I mean, they could say that, oh, this movie was being made around the same time. We have no idea. It's just like, really? This movie, The Wild, you're going to tell me that this movie, you had no idea it was really getting made at the time?
This spring, the zoo will officially be ours in 3, 2, and showtime.
What a strange place for a party.
Ow!
When one of their own is taken away.
Dad!
Ryan!
Help me!
Ryan! No!
We've got to find my son.
Okay.
Here I come. Who put that bar there?
5 friends will take on a mission.
Do I look trashy in this?
By land.
Run! We are going to die!
By air.
Bet you didn't know I could ride geese, did you?
Bareback. By sea.
Help! 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 Oh dear. They won't got any eucalyptus wipes.
And discover who are you guys?
We're covert agents.
Oh, you're the worst covert agent ever. Ow!
What a jungle the city can be.
Everybody, stay calm.
You and your crew here are a little far from your burrow. Get far from your burrow! They're frighteningly horrible monster beasts. But they're not bad dancers.
Walt Disney Pictures presents
I got Ryan sent. Ryan.
Doesn't anyone knock anymore?
The Wild. Only in theaters, April 14th.
It's literally Madagascar. It's literally the same movie, except they changed the plot around a little bit here. But it's still a group of these animals. They still have to go out of their normal, natural habitat in the zoo and head to Africa to go find their son. I mean, not only are we taking bits from Madagascar, we're taking from Finding Nemo, we're taking from The Lion King. I mean, it's literally every single one of those movies I mentioned. So you have Samson, played by Kiefer Sutherland, who's a male lion who loses his preteen son, played by Greg Sipes, also known as Beast Boy from Teen Titans, when he wanders off and accidentally gets shipped from the Central Park Zoo to Africa. He teams up with a group of animals as they embark on a journey to rescue his missing son and take risks to invading dangers along the way. A cast that includes Jim Belushi, Eddie Izzard, Janine Garofalo, Richard Kind, and William Shatner playing the villain in this. This is directed by Steve Williams, who's a name you may not be familiar with, but you have definitely seen his work before. This is a guy who was a visual effects animator on several different movies, most notably The Mask, which, you know, he got a nomination at the Academy Awards for the original Mask work. He worked on stuff like Spawn, the bad effects in Spawn in general, but he's done stuff that you have seen a movie that he's been involved in. The Abyss, The Hunt for Red October, Terminator 2, Jurassic Park, Jumanji, Eraser. All those movies that I mentioned, he worked on those movies. But he was also known for making the blockbuster short commercials with Jim Belushi and James Woods as these Guinea Pig and Rabbit, who were right across the street from a Blockbuster Video. If you remember those commercials from back in the early 2000s. I mean, this is the same director overall. They got the writers of the Santa Claus movies, too. So there is talent involved in the film. But unfortunately, the film falls apart because, I mean, the trailer gives you just pretty much everything you should know about the film already, because it's a movie we've seen done to death so many times. I mean, we've seen this movie done over and over and over again. And Madagascar made it work. Madagascar made it funny. This movie just makes it uncomfortable and annoying. Like, this is one of the most annoying animated movies I've ever seen in my life. And this is probably the movie that I would not be shocked at all if Disney saw this movie in post-production and was just like, oh my God, we need Pixar back badly. Steve, John, hey, give me a call. Let's make a deal. Let's get this done, because we're really struggling here. Because they had this, you had Valiant. This is about as bad of a movie. This is about as lazy and as bland and as bad of a movie as you can get. This is a terrible movie, man. This was an absolutely horrible, horrible movie. So, yeah, not much more to say about The Wild, except, avoid this one like the plague. And don't tell me that Disney had no idea this was getting made around the same time. Yeah. Because, we all believed that when, you made that movie Ants, when A Bug's Life was getting made. I mean, let's be honest. Why would you think otherwise? I'm just kind of blabbering on here to end this on some kind of note here. I'm just rambling right now. But bottom line, The Wild sucks. The Wild's a terrible movie, So let's go ahead and get to some smaller movies, some notable smaller movies, starting off with our first one we have here, and that is Gretchen Mol as the notorious Betty Page.
It's making sick to see guys like me grovel like this.
It's fine.
Don't you just want to crush us? Humiliate us? Punish us?
But for Betty Page, life was more than just a pose.
Janet, what do you think of all this tying up business?
Oh, I enjoy acting very much. Has Mama said anything to you about my mother? Not a word.
What do you think Jesus would say about what you're doing now?
I hope that if he's unhappy with what I'm doing, he'll let me know somehow.
I mean, she's really the best thing about the movie. Gretchen Mol is Betty Page, and of course, this is a story about the life of the pinup and bondage model, the most famous pinup and bondage model of all time, Betty Page, played by Gretchen Mol. This is made by the same people that made American Psycho, the director Mary Herron, the screenwriter Guinevere Turner. And Gretchen Mol just really makes this movie stand out the most. I mean, she really is the best thing about the movie, because she just fits the role of Betty Page so well in this film. But unfortunately, the rest of the movie kind of falls into the predictable biopic territory that we've seen done to death so many times before, and just feels like a film that just waters down every possibility it has to tell the full story in general. Which, this is an independent release. They should not really have a limit to what kind of a story they should tell here. But then again, the people in the Betty Page family probably want the most sanest story they could tell with this, which I don't know how you could do that with a story about the most famous pinup model of all time. But unfortunately, that's the film we get here, and the film kind of stumbles because of it. But there's only really one real reason to watch the film in general, and that is because of Gretchen Mol as Betty Page. That's the real reason. That's the only reason this movie has any memorability to it, because she just fits that role so well. It's just so perfectly handled, so perfectly done. Unfortunately, the rest of the movie just doesn't work around that. It just feels like a film that is really struggling to find a way to tell this, to make a great movie out of this, when it feels like it's kind of stuck in a direction of what it's trying to do in general here. Like, it doesn't really have an overall set goal at the end of the movie. But the overall best thing about the film, like I said, is Gretchen Mol. She's the one person that really carries the load and makes this movie as special as it is, and it works solely because of her. But it's one of those movies where I look at it and just kind of like, the only reason to see the film is because of its leading star. Other than that, though, for a one-time watch, it's just worth it just for the one-time watch. But other than that, though, you really don't need to watch this movie in general, unless you really have a keen interest in Betty Page in general. But other than that, though, there's no real other reason to watch the film in general. But it should have been so much more. It's a disappointment, but a disappointment that has value to it, but just enough there to say, for a one-time watch, it's fine, but you definitely wanted to see more from it. I wanted to see more from it, at least. So that's the Notorious Betty Page. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is Kinky Boots.
Some very funny people out there.
The only way to succeed in life
You look sexy.
It does to me, George.
is to put your best foot forward.
I give you the Kinky Boot Factory!
Kinky Boots.
You might not remember the film, but you have definitely seen the Broadway musical that this is based off of. This is based on a true story about a struggling shoe factory owner named Charlie who forms an unlikely partnership with Lola, a drag queen, to save the business. Charlie develops a plan to produce custom footwear for drag queens rather than the men's dress shoes that his firm is known for, alienating many in the process. Charlie, of course, is played by Joel Edgerton in one of his early film roles, and Lola is played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. It was basically Simon in here. You have Nick Frost in here. You also have, I think that's about it in terms of the cast in general, but the film itself really, it should be so much more. It feels like it's trying to be the next Full Monty, but it also feels like it wants to be more marketable than the Full Monty was. But the film itself is just an okay movie. It's not a great film overall. I think Joel Edgerton and Chiwetel Ejiofor do their best to really hold the load on the film in general, keep the film on pace for something of entertainment value to it. But I think more of the memorability of this movie comes from the fact that it did evolve into a pretty damn good stage musical. I've heard some of the songs from the musical, and they're really good. But then again, they're songs written by Cyndi Lauper, and she will turn out some pretty good songs in general. But that's the only thing I really remember from the movie is the Broadway musical itself. The movie itself, not so much. It's just kind of a mixed bag movie in general. Not a bad movie, but not a great movie either. But the more I remember from it, I remember the musical being much better than the movie was. At least that's my personal take on it. So, not much more to say about that one. That's Kinky Boots. So let's go ahead and move on to our last film, which is Ellen Page and Patrick Wilson starring in Hard Candy.
Jeff?
Hey.
You just don't really look like the kind of guy who has to meet girls over the internet.
This year's most controversial thriller.
You work as a photographer, you find out real quick. People's faces lie.
Is my face lying? I recognize this girl.
You're getting yourself in terrible trouble.
Superb, brilliant,
You are coming on to me.
absolutely terrifying.
Please don't do this!
It's just so easy to blame a kid.
Hard Candy at cinemas June 16.
Like I said, this is the movie that kind of introduced us to the world to Ellen Page. Of course, now she's Elliot Page, but Patrick Wilson is also in here too. He plays the story is that Ellen Page plays a 14-year-old female vigilante who's trapped and torturing of a man, played by Patrick Wilson, she suspects of being a sexual predator. And this is directed by David Slade. David Slade will later go on to direct 30 Days of Night, and probably the overall best Twilight movie, Eclipse, which even then is not really all that great in general here. But this is a film that really took a lot of people by surprise. It was a movie that was very well received by critics. It was a marginal hit at the box office, and like I said, it helped to usher the careers of both Wilson and Page as a whole. And the movie overall is pretty intense and very well done. I think both of these actors really do carry the load of the film very well here. I think they give they both give really solid performances in this. The tension is very good. The horror factor here, it doesn't feel like a Saw film or a Hostel movie. It feels like a very unique and different horror movie in general. And I think it works very well as a whole. I think it's a very entertaining film, very tense, very terrifying. Ellen Page and Patrick Wilson really give it their all in this. It's a really good movie. It's a great movie that I really do recommend. A very underrated gem. Definitely check it out. Hard Candy. And so, with all that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. Now, the next time we meet, we'll take a look at 3 more movies, including the feature film adaptation of Silent Hill. We also have Kiefer Sutherland starring in The Sentinel, along with Michael Douglas. And also American Dreams, the latest film from the directors of About a Boy, and also the guys who brought us the American Pie, the first American Pie. So we'll take a look at those 3 movies all on the next episode. That'll be out tomorrow. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the place on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification button because we post videos every day, and this way you get updates on when the new videos come out. Now, with all that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.